Reports from before this NHL trade deadline reveals that the Boston Bruins may be shopping forward Jakub Lauko. Now, Jakub Lauko has an interesting situation where he does not have too much NHL experience under his belt at this point, but still is a very interesting option for some teams that may be looking for a rebuild or a retool. So we're going to be talking about the possibility of a Jakub Lauko trade here before the NHL trade deadline tomorrow, and what a potential return could be in a situation where he does get traded. Now, before we get into this, we notice that 92% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. So if you're looking for a spot to get all your Boston Bruins news as it happens immediately, you're in the right spot. Make sure to hit the sub button, join us along for the NHL trade deadline, and a lot more news to follow afterwards. But like I said, we're going to be talking about a potential forward that may be shopped, and that forward, obviously, like I said, is Jakub Lauko. Now, there's a recent report that revealed that he may be getting shopped due to the recent play of the Boston Bruins and him sort of being pushed out of the lineup. And this comes from this article here from The Athletic. Cam Neely and his colleagues have done well to identify signs of inexpensive free agents. Anthony Richard will take a top-line ride with Marchand and Charlie Coyle against the Kraken. Brazeau has a goal and an assist in 3 NHL games. Jesper Boqvist, hushed in training camp on 2 previous recalls, has 2 goals and 3 assists in his past 5 games as the number 4 center. All 3 have pushed Jakub Lauko out of the lineup and possibly into the trade mix. Now, Jakub Lauko has came out and said in interviews that, he can't wait for the trade deadline to be over. It's always a bit of anxiety surrounding the trade deadline. Your name might be out there. You might not even know that you're going to be in a trade mix, in trade talks until the call finally happens and you're heading somewhere else. So it's very understandable a worry from Jakub Lauko here in this situation, but he would be a very good fit in the trade mix for the Boston Bruins and would be a very good fit with many other teams around the league that may be looking for, like I said, a rebuild or a retool, just because of how young he is. He's a very promising, young talent that I think really needs another option, like a solidified NHL option that he actually has a chance to prove himself, and that's why I think the Bruins might be willing to put him in a trade mix, Like the Bruins right now, obviously attempting to go to a deep playoff run, still looking for that deep playoff run, even though they're losing, they lost two top centers in David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron. So, they're still pretty shallow on that center. I've said that the past few videos when we've been talking about potential trades for forwards, when we've been talking about potential, moves that they could make in replacement for these guys. Elias Lindholm obviously being one of those guys that they're still trying to make a push for, even though the situation has changed regarding what the Vancouver Canucks have been looking for. But, Jakub Lauko has still been pretty solid for the few, NHL games he's played this season. Played 43, so it's full first NHL season, and he's only got 8 points. You'd ideally like to see more from him, but as a 23-year-old, kind of getting your first NHL season on a team that you're not getting too many minutes on, you can't really blame him for putting up these numbers. But I think that Jakub Lauko, in exchange for someone, maybe a bit more NHL ready, someone who's trying to leave a rebuilding team to go for a final playoff push in their career or something like that, someone who has a lot of playoff experience would certainly work, for a situation in a trade for Jakub Lauko. But, realistically, what would be a return if Jakub Lauko were to be traded in this situation? We know Jakub Lauko has 2 years remaining on his contract, just under $800,000 per season, so really no trouble in the cap at all for many other teams, but it's also in a big help for the Boston Bruins, where they do not have a high-priced player that can play in the NHL. So, realistically, if he were to get pushed out of this lineup into the trade mix, why not give him a trade for a potential, player they can get for a few more seasons to help him in a playoff run? Someone who has a lot of NHL experience is what they're lacking right now, and a big drive to work and a drive to get, an energy line on the bottom 6 pairing or whatnot. But, in my mind, I think of guys maybe like a Tyler Johnson. May he be expensive, $5 million for this remaining season on the Chicago Blackhawks, but that's a guy where I think that, he realistically could and should get traded from the Chicago Blackhawks for, his playoff experience, he's been on the Tampa Bay Lightning in pretty much every scenario, and he's just kind of wasting away his playoff talent on this Blackhawks team this year, as they're nowhere near the playoffs and likely to get the first overall pick. So, maybe a guy like Tyler Johnson, someone along the lines of that. Anthony Beauvillier was one of them before he got traded as well. It was another one where he had a possibility of helping out a playoff team, but Jakub Lauko, realistically, would still work on this team. Don't get me wrong here, but I think there are many better options the Bruins could use if he were to get traded. Now, obviously, the Bruins have not made any moves yet. This trade deadline, nothing seems to be imminent right now either. We had the initial thoughts of Elias Lindholm. That kind of seems to be teetering right now a bit, depending on what we hear over these next few hours and overnight from the Vancouver Canucks. But maybe the Bruins don't make any moves in the scenario. Realistically, Jakub Lauko, like I said, could stick on this team. I think he's a great option to keep for a cheap price. But if there's an option where they can get a player, like I said, I keep on repeating myself here, but it's really just trying to get this down to a player who can play consistently in the NHL, who has for a few years, looking for a better playoff run team or a team that could go to make the playoffs if they're not already on one. And, just making this team better built for the playoffs and for a deep playoff run. That's realistically the main thing the Boston Bruins would be trying to do at this year's deadline. And, Jakub Lauko would be a potential trade candidate for that scenario. Another guy that comes to mind is a few guys on the Arizona Coyotes, Nick Bjugstad. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of his contract yet again. I don't think he's more than Tyler Johnson. Almost can confirm that he's not more than Tyler Johnson, but another guy who's been in the league forever. He's been on a solid amount of teams and a whole lot of scenarios and opportunities for him. So he could be another guy like Tyler Johnson to help a team make a playoff push. So realistically, there are many options around the NHL. A lot of young wingers are not really in the trade market right now, so a team could be interested in one. Like I said, for a future rebuilding, retool team to throw on and get a more consistent NHL playing time. That's really what we want to see Jakub Lauko do. He's a very solid player. I like the way he plays. And I think that he deserves a full NHL chance, whether that be with the Boston Bruins, whether it be somewhere else, and, just get him where he wants to be and get him into a full-time NHL position. That's what I want to see come out of this, regardless of where he is. I like the player he is. I like the guy he is. Seems like a fantastic person as well, just outside of the game of hockey. So, realistically, I wish the best for him, whatever may happen. But, just again, one more final time that this realistically is the Boston Bruins looking for a playoff push, looking for players that will help them along that journey. And Jakub Lauko, realistically right now, I don't think is it, solely because of his age, his experience, and not having too much playing time in the NHL, which is leading him to not have too much experience, if any, in the playoffs. So that's realistically the deal right now. Obviously, they may make a move tomorrow, they may make a move overnight, they may make a move tonight. So even if there is another one later tonight, I'm recording this a few hours in advance, so if there is another one tonight, I'll have a video either before this, after this, whatever, or if it's overnight, I'll have them when I wake up. But you'll know where to find it. Make sure to hit the sub button if you do want to see all the news, all the reports, all the trades, everything from this Boston Bruins. You're going to want to stay, hit that sub button, and we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about even after the deadline. A lot of exciting stuff, and you're going to want to see it. So, like I said, hit the sub button if you did want to see all that. Make sure to hit the like button if you did enjoy this video. The channel's been popping off recently. First few days of this, a lot of news, a lot of exciting stuff, and a lot of fans coming to see what we have to say. But that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.